Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring. Zoe, how you been?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. What's news?
Not a whole lot. Not much happening.
Just been working?
Yep, just working.
40 seasons over?
Yep. Uni's almost done.
Yeah?
Fully. Almost graduating.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I don't want to go back to uni. No way.
Next year, I will. Gonna go back.
Nice. What are you planning on studying?
Exercise physiology, masters.
Oh, perfect. Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. But why are we here today? What are we going to talk about?
So, we're going to talk about the returning from injury and quite a bit about the mental side of it.
Yeah, so obviously we know about injury or returning from injuries and doing the rehab and all that jazz, right? But a lot of people don't realise kind of the mental strain and the mental anguish that can come from returning from injury as well. So yes, it is a physical battle. Yes, it's a physical injury, but a lot of people don't understand or appreciate the mental side of what it takes to return from injury as well. So in terms of why is it a problem? Why do we need to actually talk about it? And I guess where does society kind of need to what's the word? What's the term? I guess have more of a discussion about it and more of an emphasis on building up the confidence and competence with someone returning back from injury.
Yeah, so I've experienced this both myself and with quite a few of my athletes, is people just have no idea what to do and they have no idea where to go. No idea who to trust as well. There's so many allied health professionals, so many different types of people to go to that it's almost like there's too many options. No one even knows where to start. And they're told too many different things as well. So I think just having a system in place where people can know where to go, who to trust is the most important thing when it comes to injury rehab.
Yeah, because you're giving your trust to someone else. Mm-hmm. It's like, I need you to help fix me. And a lot of that needs to be created by the practitioner, the coach, or even the sports coach in this case, to actually create more of a well-rounded plan in order to help bring someone back, and that will build the confidence in having these gradual KPIs in order to tick. Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely a neglected area, but let's talk about kind of the general. What is the general process at the end of the day? Like, where do people start from getting the injury? Say they play footy on the weekend, they get a bad knock to the knee. Where do they go from there?
Yeah, so initially, I guess it would come into just assessing the situation. If pain is lingering, I'll see someone. So if it's a game, talk to the trainer. That's the first point of contact. And then probably go see a physio. And then you can actually go from there, see what's recommended, and then progress further onto maybe strength and conditioning, maybe PT, and that sort of stuff further down the track.
Yep. Now, with the physio stuff, what's I guess, some green flags when it comes to a physio when they're trying to help you to return back to play?
At the very start, not trying to get you to come in 3 times a week. That they're not trying to just take your money. Giving you enough information so that you're aware of what's going on, but probably not talking too scientific. Just allowing you to ask questions as well. Yeah. Because I think everyone comes in with injuries with so many questions. And probably if you know someone who's gone to a physio as a recommended source, I think that's a big important thing as well, because you want to know who you're seeing and you want to know outcomes.
Yeah. I think I'll add to that is someone who's actually helps people get from an injury back to training or to full competition as well. And I think a good physio will know, or even an osteo in this case, will actually know where their skills lie and when they've kind of hit a ceiling effect with their skills. And this is probably the next part, is return to normal, well, getting them to return to normal function. Can they walk, do their job, whatever it may be, without any pain? But then how do we get them to become more resilient so then the issue doesn't occur or pop up when they're actually playing? So and that's when if the physio or osteo, they'll actually will start to refer out, whether it is to a strength and conditioning coach or to PT or whoever it may be, that can actually get them returning back to full function, but working in conjunction with each other as well. So I think that's probably one of the key things. But we're here talking about the mental side, right? So what are some of the, I guess, the issues that come with the mental side of being injured, essentially?
I would say the initial thing would be just feeling of incompetent, and then that progressing to every different aspect of someone's life. So if they feel like they just can't perform the daily tasks that they usually need to, or if it's something like they can't perform the sport that they love, it might just progress to, I can't be bothered doing anything, I don't want to go for a walk, I don't want to do this, and
What's
then
the point?
Yeah, and then it can just downward cycle of not doing the things they used to like doing, and then can end in so many different mental health issues and contribute to that.
Yeah, then kind of like in terms of the mental health side, what are some of the signs and symptoms of that specifically? So someone who's sustained an injury, right? They've kind of had no one to really support them or guide them back to, normal health and normal function. What are some of the red flags that, that you've seen with your experience?
Definitely mood disturbances, huge. I would say, I don't like using the word motivation, but low drive towards not necessarily activity, but just kind of everyday life. You can tell when you speak to them, like some athletes we've had in here, how are you going? And it's just, oh yeah, it's all right, I'm just tracking along. And you can tell that it's impacting them so heavily.
Yep.
And then even some like social situations might be backing away from that sort of stuff, might be kind of, just sticking to their room, their house.
Video games,
yeah.
Or even binge watching TV series or something like that as well. I think another red flag for me is the way that they perceive themselves.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I used to be able to do this and used to be able to do that. They're all talking past tense of the way they perceive themselves. I should be able to do this and be able to do that. It's like, well, currently you can't, but we can get you back there, if not even a little bit further than last time. So their confidence is really shot. Then the other one is just the way some athletes tend to be a little bit sloppy as well, because they think they can, since they're injured, they can't do as much. They drop their standards as well. So whether it's the standards in terms of sleeping, in terms of eating, schoolwork, or whatever it may be, the standards tend to drop in terms of how they function on an everyday basis as well. As you mentioned, obviously mood disturbances, their relationships with their friends and family might suffer, more socialization, and all that jazz. But we can get the opposite of that as well. Another red flag is the trying to do too much to get back too soon. And I know personally I was in this boat. I suffered an MCL injury playing rugby. I was out for 5 weeks. And I tried to do too much too soon, and I actually burnt myself out. I felt the symptoms of overtraining syndrome, essentially. And it wasn't pretty, it wasn't fun, and it's almost like I was training so much, it felt like I was having depression-like symptoms of it. So it can definitely swing the other way. So it's more about getting someone, or that coach or that S&C, who understands what the athlete has gone through, but also help them to guide through that process. So they're not going too far one way, they're neglecting themselves, but they're not going too far the other way, where they're trying to push themselves too hard to get back really soon, whether they've got a competition or squad. And then it's more about their expectations are too high for them to get back into competition, essentially.
Yeah, and then even that, when the expectations are extremely high, then any setbacks is going to take such a huge toll on the individual, because they have the expectation of getting back straight away. And there's always going to be the question of, am I going to be as good as I was? Am I going to be as competent as I was? But then setbacks come, and it will just set them right back completely.
Yeah, so what are some key strategies that we can help people recover from this? So obviously they're seeing a physio, they might be seeing a strength and conditioning coach from the physical standpoint as well, and then they'll be working together. So we tend to work quite closely with the athletes, S&C, not S&C, the physio or osteo. We help create a game plan. We have regular communications. We have KPIs that we want them to achieve on a weekly, if not sessional basis as well, that we want to see in order before we increase load or volume. And that seems to be a general recipe in order to keep them on track. So for us, it's for the athletes that we have here, especially with, I'll say Mia, she's going through it at the moment with her knee. We're trying to just manage those expectations of what she can do and what she cannot do. In the gym, she's absolutely crushing it. She's she's doing really well. Here, the physio is happy with the progress that she's making in the pool. We just don't want her to push as what she should be doing when she's fully able and fully functioning as well. So the main thing is with her is managing those expectations, and if she can make minor achievements along the way, I can do this for an amount of time, and I can do this amount of time. All right, cool. We can start to introduce a little bit of kick, about 50% intensity for 10, 20 minutes. We do that pain-free. Cool. We can start to build off that, and that helps slowly but surely build the confidence. And if I said to her, "Oh, we're going to go back in the pool, and you're going to do a 2-hour session," she's going to absolutely crush, because she doesn't have the confidence in her body to feel like they should be able to tolerate that. And she's probably right in that case as well. But it's more about, can we make sure that she can complete these sessions pain-free? If she is experiencing pain, we can dial it back and modulate her load through the sessions. And even in the gym as well, the knee starts to flare up, like when she first got back into doing more ground-based work. Like RDLs and hip bridges and whatnot with the barbell, like her knee did flare up a little bit of swelling and inflammation. Okay, cool. We just backed off a little bit in terms of volume. Then next session, fine, nothing. Okay, cool. Let's go back up again. We just went a little bit too far. So all we're doing is creating a box for them to working with, but that box will actually change, or that range will actually change over time, and getting more confidence and competency over time in order to get it back to training to full volume, then later on down the track racing again.
That's it. And I would say probably the most important thing, apart from nutrition and sleep, which is the huge big rocks that we need to focus on, but I do think setting those little goals and having goals that they can achieve at each point, like stepping stones, is so important. And that will come obviously from a physio and from us kind of working together. But especially myself, I know that I didn't have specific targets to hit. I didn't have, at this stage, we want you to be able to do this. So it was just this long road of, I don't even know if I'm progressing. And then I'd have setbacks, and then it would suck. So I think, having these little milestones that they can see and we can follow, but also adjust, is the most important thing for athletes' own kind of mental health and recovery.
Yeah, I think they want to have some level of assurity that they're moving in the right direction as well.
100%.
So if what gets tracked gets measured, then what gets measured, you can actually understand if you're making progress or not. I can't remember the actual quote, but it's something along those lines. What gets tracked gets measured. We can measure whether or not they're making progress or not by just writing it down, literally. And that's why with all training programs, we should be writing it down, having discussions around it, how to feel, great, easy, hard. Okay, cool. Do we need to back it off? Do we need to increase it a little bit more next time? Do we need to make some complete modifications to it? So these are the discussions and conversations that we have with our athletes here. And I hope that all kids or young athletes are having conversations with their coach as well, when they are trying to come back to playing in the field, to playing footy, to being on the track, or being back in the pool as well. I remember doing a piece in uni, actually. I remember this very clearly. And it was all about a return to play model or return to train model, also a return to train. So you get a guy who's out for 6 to 8 weeks, and usually there was basically this form. It was really simple to fill in. It was in conjunction with the athlete, the sports coach, the S&C or the trainer, and the physio. And basically the physio would write, in the early stages, would write KPIs for the athlete. Then basically everyone had to acknowledge it, that this is the goal for that person for that week specifically. Then has it been completed? Then the sports trainer would be able to sign it off, because they're the ones supervising the actual session as well. Then they'll come back and see the physio again next week, and usually this is more in a club setting. And then basically the notes that are made from that previous week, based on the sports trainer, even in the athlete as well, and based on the discussions that they have, they reset what the actual goals are for that week as well. I want you to be able to do, say if they've got a knee issue, I want to be able to do a single leg squat to box body weight, right? Do it for 2 sets of 10. That's the goal, without pain. And I want you to be able to get to parallel. So you're going to start a little bit higher, above parallel, and be able to nail that. And that's just an arbitrary goal, essentially. then you basically just rinse and repeat that process, and eventually, right, you're going to get this person returning back to running, and then you have all this documentation of kind of what's led to the progress of this individual and why it's actually led to this progress of the individual, rather than just kind of shooting in the dark. It's like, oh, I think you've done this, and you look like you're doing all right. We can not guarantee it, but we're going to have a higher level of certainty of being able to help this person back to return, because everyone has some level of buy-in. The coach understands what's going on. The sports coach or the head coach understands what's going on. They don't need to know the intricacies. They just need to know that this person's actually doing the work. And that model itself, and I think from the research that I did, there is, some similar models, whether it's, formalized or not formalized. It might be not formalized just through just general notes and emails, or might be formalized through specific documentation. That was actually an ideal model for a club setting, but it can also be adapted for a private setting as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. And especially if the athlete's asking lots of questions, everyone involved in their sport is going to be asking the same questions too. So it works for everyone to be communicating, and especially to have that open kind of floor where they can ask the questions and then they can be sharing it with everyone who's invested.
Yeah. And if there's issues that pop up throughout the recovery process, we can nip them in the butt pretty easily, because we've documented the whole process right there.
Absolutely.
But moving forward though, how we've actually helped people here, I think that's probably the main thing. So do you have any examples of how we've helped some of the members here move forward that kind of come to light?
Yeah, one of my girls had a back flare up. It was not, she didn't necessarily have an injury, but it was just a back flare up. She had back pain, and she initially decided she wasn't going to come in. She wasn't going to train until it recovered. She did see a physio who told her to rest, and then also gave her other modes of exercise to follow. And then when I actually spoke to her, we kind of came up with a plan of, we will come into the gym, we will train, and we'll figure out kind of what's initiating this pain. Eventually, we kind of sorted out that it was a lot to do with her breathing, the way she was breathing when she was doing her lifts. She basically wasn't breathing properly. She wasn't like breathing into her belly or bracing, as you might say, for some lifts. So the main thing we actually did was focusing on breathing when she was doing hinging stuff, and then keeping her in the gym and keeping her moving, because it made her feel so much better actually working out and being in this environment, opposed to just not doing anything, because she wasn't necessarily playing sport. I think she might have been doing school footy at that time.
Yeah, I believe she was,
Yeah. But other than that, this was kind of her main mode of exercise. And so coming in here, feeling like she was actually doing something for herself, did make her feel better.
Yeah, and she's going to feel a lot more productive, and you're problem solving the whole thing, and she feels better.
Yeah, exactly.
Very simple.
And it was just that really small change in just breathing mechanics that made her feel like, oh, I actually feel better. I actually don't feel this in my back. And it was just that little conversation that helped that.
And sometimes it's kind of interesting. You said the physio said to rest, but then also gave them exercises, and I'm like, oh, they don't really match up at the end of the day. Like, what that meant is reduce the intensity and the volume, and we get you do some specific exercises to get back into it. But at the end of the day, it was just a minor issue that we fixed, and all of a sudden everything just started to move quite nicely after that.
And the physio did say do Pilates instead of strength, which I actually love Pilates. I do Pilates. But to tell your client to not do something that they know, like strength training is obviously going to help, and then to say you need to go and pay for this other form of exercise is an issue that we can sometimes see in allied health as well. I think sometimes we get, instead of working with what the individual has, sometimes it can be like, try this, try that, and then there's just too many options. So then that's another thing we talk about, is working with the physio, with the athlete, and with what they have right now, instead of adding new things. So with the strength training, we could actually figure out what was going on and kind of work with it, rather than her parents having to pay for Pilates, stop this strength training that she's enjoying and that she's doing, and do something completely new for a flare-up.
Yeah, and then if she doesn't particularly enjoy Pilates, and it's like, well, we've kind of gone backwards on what the initial reason why for her to do strength training in the first place.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of her lower back, it was because she wanted to get stronger, fitter and faster.
Exactly. And I implemented a few exercises that were similar to Pilates exercises. It's not.
Yeah, and that's the problem I think we have in Australia. Not so much overseas. I think overseas is a little bit different from what I've heard speaking to practitioners in South Africa and the US, is they really do believe in those countries that, you know, strength and conditioning is a big part of it. In Australia, seems to be like a bit of a disconnect with a lot of practitioners, whether it's because of the way that's taught at university, or we've got like old school mentality behind it as well when it comes to strength training and rehab and recovery. Yeah, a lot of physios think a modality is going to fix the problem. Like Pilates, like we know Pilates is great. Like there's research behind, like there's probably a little bit of research behind it to say that it's quite a valid modality for those with lower back issues, mobility issues, or something like that, right? But we can actually, on a gym floor, we can actually extract certain elements from yoga, from Pilates, gymnastics, weightlifting, powerlifting, whatever it is, doesn't matter, right? Even if it's like rehab, doesn't matter what space it is, right? And we can implement it within strength and conditioning. And that's the beauty of strength and conditioning. We're not pigeonholed by a modality. We actually can be dynamic in terms of the interventions that we provide for the individuals here.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the programs, I'll give you an example with Jordan. Jordan's one of the tennis players. You know, he's had, you know, lower back and groin issues. You know, we did a lot of, you know, when you first started training here, a lot of eccentrics and isometrics, like very joint position specific work in order to overcome a lot of these issues, help clean up a lot of those movement deficiencies that he had specifically. And now he's actually, you know, he's dominating on the court. Like, even though I've been looking after him for almost 3 years, and December's coming to 3 years with him, he's managed to be able to put himself in a better position compared to anyone else. He can recover better. He can play harder. The nickels that he really gets is really just too much volume. At the end of the day, he hasn't come to me for like any, you know, specific wear and tear or anything like that, which has been really good to see. So he can tolerate a lot of volume and intensity. And I do include a lot of yoga-based and ground-based movements with him. So whether it's like a down dog to alternating ankle touch, or down dog, up dog, whatever it may be, or child's pose or something like that, we always implement some element of that because I know it's going to pay off in his actual training program in order to help with his mobility, specifically for tennis. It's the same for the swimmers here. You know, we use a lot of barbells and dumbbells and kettlebells here, but you know, some of the girls do struggle with some mobility limitations, and I do take elements of yoga and actually kind of modify it enough so then it actually enables them or be able to meet their needs. So I think throwing the baby out of the bathwater is like, oh, you shouldn't exercise, but then I'm going to prescribe you exercises and give you Pilates, which is still essentially exercise. It doesn't even make sense at the end of the day. And it's kind of, it's a bit of a head for the athlete or the person in question as well. It's like, you're telling me not to exercise and you get me to exercise. I'm like, come on, what is it?
I know. And this is where we always get people are asking, what's the best thing to do for this? What exercise do I need to do for this? And that's never, ever the case. Like, there was a recent study that I saw on lower back pain, and it was a recent literature review, and it was about what the best form of exercise for lower back pain is. And every single form of exercise helped. Walking helped. Anything helped. It's not like you need to do this one thing for this injury that you have right now.
I think sometimes the question is just making that modification. If you're not walking as much, do a little bit more walking. If you're not lifting weights, do a little bit of weights. If you're doing too much weights, then probably just back off the volume. It's more about just having enough, and you know, the devil's in the detail, and the doses and the poison is in the dosage of it. And too much is a bad thing, and too little is a bad thing. But there's going to be a happy medium between, in the middle somewhere as well. So, and I think we kind of, when we strip away and actually focus on what's actually going to serve the athlete or the individual in this case, is number one, I think, get back to our point is, setting those small micro goals for them in conjunction with the physio, osteo, strength coach, and even the sports coach as well, and being transparent across ways, right? If you have a gap or deficiency in your knowledge, especially as a practitioner or as a coach, sports coaches, that's fine. That's okay. If you've never rehabbed someone as a sports coach, that's fine. We're going to be able to help you and assist you. And when you don't know, we know where we can help you more. If you think you know what you think is best, then we're like, that's probably not the case. We're going to have some conflicting views, but then also it's not going to be helping the athlete and where the athlete is in that point in time versus where they actually should be. And then there's a disconnect between where they actually are and where we want them to be. And I think the other part is actually tracking it over time as well, tracking the progress of the reps, sets. I know a lot of EPs, physios, osteos, they prescribe exercises to the clients, but they don't do it because it's usually because it's boring or something like that. But putting them in an environment where they can flourish and implement these exercises and see the outcomes because it's being properly tracked as well with support, I think that's going to be the key thing moving forward in order to help people to rehab a lot of these issues. And we see it time and time again. Someone gets a neck pain, shoulder pain, bursitis, whatever it may be, they send all their physio sends all the information to us. We modify their program. They feel better because they can still train. We get endorphin kick because they can train at a relatively high intensity. Then everything's just sunshine and rainbows after that.
Yeah, and as an athlete, what we would recommend initially, so what we said before, is to see an allied health professional, and then 100% try a strength coach or a PT or someone that you can trust to follow your allied health professional's advice, but also adapt with you and change everything with you, because we kind of know that sometimes allied health professionals they'll set you programs, but they're not going to be with you all the time. They're kind of more so while you're there in the session rather than keeping in contact with you 24/7.
Yeah.
So then that's where someone who can help you with your strength training and that sort of stuff can be more of a point of contact constantly. And then obviously needs to be someone that you can actually trust as well.
Yeah, it needs to be high level frequency, and that's probably the main point. With osteos and physios, yeah, they might get you on a regular basis, right? But they won't check in between sessions. Mm-hmm. With us, we can check in on a very frequent basis with a lot of our members here, and I think that's the key part. And as they become more confident, return to play becomes more of an emphasis or a goal for them, is then the physio and osteo can actually start to back off. Okay, cool, they're hitting this, this, and this. Okay, cool. Give them the green light and they can go participate. And that's the ultimate point. The ultimate goal is to get the green tick from the physio. It's like, yep, full strength. The strength coach says, yep, full strength. They're back to where they were, if not a little bit more. Their confidence is up. The sports coach says, yep, they're training at full capacity, no issues, recovering well, eating well, sleeping well. They're probably just like a better teammate as a result. Yeah. And then basically they're going to be doing what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. And that's the end goal, is that you see an allied health professional less, and that you can be at maintenance and continuing working with your coaches and training. Yeah,
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll leave it there. If you like this episode, please subscribe and share and like this one. We want to get the message out. It's a confusing process. If you're a parent or a young athlete as well, a lot of these processes or this knowledge is not widely available, or it's not well understood, or but at the professional level it's all in-house. Everything's just covered: nutrition, psychologist, S&C, physical therapy. It's all in-house. Sports coaching, but at the junior level, the private level, it's getting there. But I think we just need to reach out to more parents and coaches to actually understand what the actual process is of getting kids back on the field, pool, track, court, whatever it may be. Cool.
That's it.
Thanks.